Boyo, I did not expect to be making this video. I mean, I was like thinking about today. I was like, it's gonna be a relaxing day. I'll be able to like maybe film a quick, probably 5 to 10 minute news and update video. It's gonna be about little stuff. It's gonna be nice and relaxing. Maybe I'll have time to get some unboxings done. I won't. I'll definitely have to push all that stuff back till later in the week because I'm busy for the rest of the day. But I was like, maybe I'll have some time to get some of this easy stuff done, some of this fun stuff. Nope. I had to read the comment section on yesterday's video, last night's video, and it just now we're here. What's up, everybody? Demon back. Welcome to a brand new video. Today we're going to be doing another Godzilla King of the Monsters discussion video. This one's more of Godzilla in general, not specific to King of the Monsters, but whatever. I said King of the Monsters, so we're going to roll with it. Godzilla and politics. Now, I literally said in the last video, I don't want to be talking about politics in the next video, and now I'm making a whole video about it. So, okay, let's jump into it. First of all, I have a challenge to you guys. You're probably going to be able to do it because I'm sure like maybe Son of Godzilla, it'd be kind of hard to figure it out, but like find me a Godzilla movie that doesn't have any sort of political influence at all, like none. There's no political influence. Pretty sure we can even find stuff for Son of Godzilla. No political or social influence or relevance. That's what I'll say. Find me a Godzilla movie without either of those two things. It has to check off one or the other, or both. You're not going to be able to find one that doesn't check off one or the other. Every single Godzilla movie has some sort of social or political relevance. That's just the way it is. Let's go through it. Where does this all come from? We'll go watch my last video and find out about the women and the Bechdel test and everything going on there. But basically, what I'll say in this video is Vera Farmiga did nothing wrong. She didn't do anything wrong. It was a one-sentence quote from a 6-page article, a 6-page Total Film Magazine article, a one-sentence quote that people are freaking out about. Literally one sentence, okay? I broke down the full thing and I never once mentioned this. The only reason it's popular now is because someone wrote an article about it, and that article made other people write articles about it, and then it kind of blew up from there. I don't know why Godzilla fans latched onto it so much, but they did. And also, by the way, there isn't anything wrong with a Godzilla movie passing the Bechdel test. In the last video, we talked about 15 Godzilla movies that passed the Bechdel test. In addition to those, I've got 2 more. We've got Godzilla 2014 with Elle Brody and whoever her the other nurse girl was. It's a named character, I just don't remember the name. But her friend, Elle Brody, and her friend, they passed the Bechdel test together. And Godzilla City on the Edge of Battle, Mayana and Miyana have a conversation about something other than a man. So once again, we passed the Bechdel test. The issue that I had with the Bechdel test thing from yesterday, it wasn't the fact that Vera Farmiga said that she thinks Godzilla is going to pass the test, because who the hell cares? The Bechdel test is a stupid test anyways, and most people acknowledge that. My problem was the fact that all these articles ignored 65 in November, years of history in order to try and make some sort of political point or like push their agenda on us. It's a bit stupid to ignore the fact that Godzilla movies have always been progressive with women, to try and make it seem like this new one is going to be the one that stands out. No, it's not. It's going to be just like the others. King of the Monsters is not going to be some woke fest, alright? Don't freak out about it. I've heard some people be like, they're forcing their agenda on us already. No, they're not. How can you say that? Because one person said a one-sentence quote? Really? And you're like, oh, too much. You're forcing your agenda on me. Like, relax. It's not that bad. Which gets us into the censorship issue. It seems, at least from what I can tell, that a lot of Godzilla fans are like, we're gonna censor those kinds of opinions. We don't want those in our movies. You can totally put whatever political stuff you want in here, just as long as it's not SJW stuff. That doesn't solve anything. I don't know. There's nothing wrong with King of the Monsters pushing for some sort of feminist ideals, just as long as they're not radical. Of course, anything radical is not good. That's kind of like why they're called radicals, is because they're crazy. But just as long as they're pushing for like reasonable things, like, oh, I don't know, maybe having 2 female characters who can stand on their own as strong female characters, I don't have a problem with that. Now, if they're doing that at the sacrifice of all the male characters, if every single male character, it's at their expense, that the males are all idiots and the only characters who are smart are females, that's when I have a problem with it. When it is just a movie where people are people and people are strong people, I don't really have a problem with that. So let's talk about the political agenda here. Again, I don't have an issue with politics in films. I just don't. It's always been a part of cinema. Politics have been involved in so many movies before. Some of the greatest movies ever are heavily politically influenced. I don't have an issue with politics in films. I don't have an issue with a movie trying to push a political agenda upon me. What I do have a problem with is when that's done poorly, when it's not executed well, when it's done in a very unclever way, when there's no subtlety to it, when it's done, like I said, where all the male characters are idiots, it's at the expense of the men to make the women look good, or whatever the agenda they're pushing is. Just as long as it's done in a way that's understandable, relatable, and very well executed, I don't have a problem with it. Even if I don't agree with the message, which a lot of times when I watch a movie, I won't agree with the message it's pushing. That's not necessarily the case for Godzilla movies, because those have pretty reasonable messages that they're pushing. But a lot of the time when I watch movies, I will go, don't necessarily agree with that, but I don't have a problem with it because it wasn't done in my face. And I've seen so many people freaking out like, oh, it's going to become just like Marvel and just like Star Wars. Here's what I'll say to that. I don't hate The Last Jedi because there was too much feminism in the film. I hate The Last Jedi because the feminism in the film was poorly executed and didn't serve the plot of the movie at all. It actually held the plot back. That's my problem with it. And on the opposite side of that end, Wonder Woman. I don't love Wonder Woman because it had feminism in it. I love Wonder Woman because it was well done, well executed, and it felt empowering for both men and women. I don't have a problem with Wonder Woman. And I actually don't love Wonder Woman the movie. I'm just saying it's a better example. I think Wonder Woman's okay. Anyways, that's not the point of this video. I'm not here to review that movie. A movie like Black Panther. I don't hate Black Panther because it touched themes of racial disparity. I hate Black Panther because when it touched those themes, it felt very forced and it was in a way that didn't really make sense for the characters in the movie themselves. And so it was poorly executed. And as much as people want to argue that, it was poorly executed and it felt like a forced attempt to be politically and socially relevant. On the opposite end of that coin, we have Planet of the Apes, a movie that touches the same themes of racism and oppression in society. But I freaking love that movie because it tackles those themes so well. It does it right. If a movie does it right, I don't have a problem with it. If a movie does it wrong, then I have a problem with it. Let's get back to censorship here for a minute, now that we have that context as to what I'm talking about here. I don't think we can pick and choose what kind of a political agenda a movie pushes on us. I think that's a bit ridiculous. If you don't like the political agenda a movie's pushing on you, don't watch the movie. It's as simple as that. We can't stop Godzilla movies from having any SJW influence because that's counterproductive. Instead, we should fight to have Godzilla movies have well-developed themes and allegories rather than having poorly developed political and social messages just to try and fit the time period that the movie's being made in. I get it. I get that there's like a big push nowadays for that modern day, everyone needs to be woke, right? Is that the term everyone's using? I get it. I think it's incredibly stupid too. I'm just like the rest of you. I just don't think we should say they're not allowed to touch it at all. They are not allowed to touch any sort of themes of feminist or whatever else. I don't know, whatever else they're going to touch that's going to upset people. I don't think we can say they're not allowed to touch that at all, because at that point we're right back to where we started in the 1950s that resulted in all of this in the first place. Like, we are right back to being that American censorship board, right? And we don't want to be that. That's why we don't do that anymore. That's why we don't censor the way movies are made anymore, is because it's counterproductive. And we'll get back to what I'm talking about here in a minute when we talk about why Godzilla is Godzilla. But I just think it's a bit ridiculous to try and say we can't do that. We can't have them do social messages in Godzilla movies. And to go along with that, I would say a movie like Godzilla vs. Hedorah. I don't spare Godzilla vs. Hedorah from criticism because I agree with the message of the movie. And I agree with the message of the movie that people should stop polluting and that we should work together as a humanity to try and better our environment and everything like that. I agree with the message of the movie, but I still trash on that movie all the time. Yeah, trash is kind of an intentional word I chose. I still trash on that movie all the time because the way it handled those themes was incredibly poorly executed. It did such a bad job beating you over the head with it. It was so obvious what they were trying to get across. Like, a kindergartner could figure it out. And I know it's a movie made for kids, but I don't give it a break for that. I think it's just a bad movie. And I'm okay to say that it's a bad movie because I don't have a problem with that. I'm not going to say, I agree with the message of the movie, so it's a great movie. No, I agree with the message of the movie, and it was poorly executed, and it was a bad movie. Now let's talk about Godzilla and politics in general, all right? Godzilla has always been incredibly heavily influenced by politics. The original Godzilla movie was literally made because Tsuburaya could not make the movie he wanted to make with the heavy American censorship of the time. This is what I was talking about. The original film, it wasn't supposed to be Godzilla, but because we had such strong American censorship in Japan at the time, and I know in 1954 technically that censorship wasn't really in full force anymore, but it was still there. It was still present on the minds of people. That's why Godzilla is a giant monster and not the atomic bomb. That's why they did what they did in that movie. That's why they never directly blame America, even though they heavily hint to the fact that America is the one who created Godzilla. The original film is so politically heavy. It pushes Western ideals onto Japanese audiences with the love triangle between Ogata, Emiko, and Serizawa. It's very heavily suggested in that film that the love between Emiko and Ogata is what should be considered right and that the forced marriage between Emiko and Serizawa should not be what they're going with, which is why in the end of the film, Emiko doesn't wind up with Serizawa. Serizawa dies. So, I mean, the movie touches themes like that. The film pushes strong anti-war and anti-atomic bomb messages, and you see that with things such as Godzilla and the Oxygen Destroyer. Serizawa has a great monologue at the end of the film about it. The movie is just filled with that stuff. King Kong vs. Godzilla is one of the goofier entries in the Godzilla series, but still, it's filled with satire on the modern day culture and our obsession with sensationalism and the corruption of the industry behind popular media, such as TV and commercials and everything like that. Films like Mothra vs. Godzilla and Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster preach about the importance of setting aside our differences and working together as a species for the betterment of mankind. Godzilla vs. Gigan warns about the dangers of polluting in a much better way than Godzilla vs. Hedorah does, and the severity of our actions as a species. Godzilla 1984 was a direct result of the Cold War getting out of hand and the separation between countries. You watch that movie and it's super politically heavy. Godzilla vs. Biollante warns about bioethics and the dangers of tampering with nature. It also has some pretty damn strong feminist ideals mixed throughout the film, but it's done in a super subtle way to the point where the audience won't even know. Actually, I linked an article down below that I would appreciate if you guys all checked out. I don't have any influence over this article. It's not like something that I'm sponsored to say. I'm not related to it at all. I just happen to read it for school, and I thought it was super interesting. I linked the article down below. It's about the feminist influences in Godzilla vs. Biollante, along with the bioethics influences in Godzilla vs. Biollante. It actually focuses on bioethics more than it focuses on feminism, but it touches both aspects, and I think it's pretty damn interesting. So I left it down there so that you can check it out, but do be warned, once you read it, you'll never really be able to watch that film the same again. I mean, I'm not able to watch that film the same again because I'm like, holy cow, that's what that stuff meant? Ugh, it's kind of messed up. But anyways, I linked it down below, so go check it out if you want. GMK asked people to remember the past so that we don't make the same mistakes that we did back then, and we don't wind up killing ourselves. The Godzilla Millennium era as a whole had a lot of feminist ideals forced upon the audience, but it was done in a super subtle way to the point where most people don't even notice. Shin Godzilla's entire plot revolved around pointing out the flaws in the Japanese government system and the dangers of a bureaucratic government. It's so heavily influenced by politics that I actually have made multiple videos on the channel discussing the politics in Shin Godzilla because that's the point of the movie. That's what it wants you to do. The film exists specifically to get people talking, and so that's what we did on the channel, and now people are like, Godzilla movies have never had political influences. They're just big dumb monster movies. The hell are you talking about? You've never seen a Godzilla movie before. Godzilla City on the Edge of Battle warns about the dangers of technological advancement, and Godzilla the Planet Eater, the most recent Godzilla movie to come out, warns about the dangers of religious influence. So what I have to say to Godzilla fans, or not really Godzilla fans, what I have to say to people who act like the Godzilla franchise is just a bunch of mindless action movies with no message behind them, and the only reason that people watch the movies, the only thing that people get excited for is the monster fights, I'd say that you're not a deep Godzilla fan, or not deep enough to get it. You're a surface level fan, and that's not a bad thing. I'm not saying that you being a surface level fan is a bad thing. I'm not saying that it makes you any less of a fan than people like me. I'm just saying that that's not the point of these films. You clearly didn't get it. And I mean, I give you a pass, at least a lot of you, because I know most of you are young, and when I was young, I didn't care about that stuff either. In fact, most people my age, most Godzilla fans my age, even the ones that are as big of Godzilla fans as I am, most of them don't even care about the political and social relevance of these movies. They just care about the plot and the characters and the monster stuff. You see it with a lot of older fans. A lot of the older fans are the ones who have the same viewpoint that I do, which is like, no, these movies are much deeper than people give them credit for, and we should give them credit for that. I don't blame people for not being into all this stuff, especially the young children. I really don't think that we should blame them. What I will say is don't go around pretending that Godzilla movies have never had any political influence over them, because they always have. That's literally the point of the character. And there's nothing wrong with a Godzilla movie having political influence, even if that political influence is certain SJW values mixed in. And I say certain SJW values because, let's be honest, we don't need any of that crazy stuff. All right, let's just keep it realistic here. Just as long as it's well executed, I don't have a problem with it. So it's time to wake up, grow up, and accept that the Godzilla franchise is much bigger and more important than a few monsters beating each other up. If you want mindless action films, the Transformers franchise has you covered. Thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I actually don't know how many people will enjoy this video. I feel like I was kind of bagging on a lot of my viewers from the last video, and that's not really the point of this. I'm not trying to like attack anyone or make anyone feel bad. I'm just saying don't ignore the past. It's a bit hypocritical to go back to my last video and be like, yeah, those darn articles forgetting about the past, forgetting about how Godzilla movies have always had strong female characters, damn them, and then turning around and being like, well, hey, wait a minute, Godzilla movies have never been politically influenced, so let's get politics out of Godzilla movies because it doesn't belong there. The movies are just supposed to be big dumb monster movies that we're supposed to turn our brains off and enjoy. It's a bit hypocritical, so let's stop pretending that the Godzilla movies of the past are nothing. All right, let's acknowledge what they were made for at the very least. All right, that's all I'll say for this one, guys. Thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I'll see you guys next time. D-Man out.